built an empire to mask the pain. A self-made man with a heart and heart, watching the world from a place apart. Then she walked in like a sudden blade, in the midnight heat where the shadows played. A fallen heiress with a rebel soul, ready to take back all control. She lived by no rules but her own desire, wrapping his life in a ring of fire. An international ghost of a golden age, stepping back onto the center stage. Oh, the Venus flytrap.
Hello and welcome to the Venus Flytrap podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards. And this is where we talk about all kinds of relationships. And of course, everything is a relationship, right? We call these relationships that we don't want to be in toxic relationships sometimes. I call them Venus Flytrap relationships because it can be any kind of relationship with your spouse, with your husband, your wife, your significant other, with money, with your career. It's all relationships, right? Even your creator, if you have a relationship with a creator, whether you call that God, Allah, Brian, the universe, it's all the same. You know, I have that belief, or even this belief, that God does not have an ego. Whoever he or she is, right? And I believe God is nature, right? Everything comes back to nature. We're part of nature. Our bodies are made of the earth and the elements of the earth. And God is nature and God is in everything. God is everywhere, omnipresent, right? Omnipotent, all loving, unconditionally loving God, right? But that's not who most people recognize or what you say, worship, right? Or have in their lives. And that means there's an emptiness that can't be fulfilled with anything else. And people are trying to do that all the time, right? With the material world, with a relationship, with a car, a bus. Although I don't know that many people really desire a bus that much. But you get my point. It's something in the external world, right? And that's impossible. You can never do that. Now, you've also heard the quote from the Bible that was written by who? No, not God. Haven't you heard? God is dyslexic. Anyway, the Bible was written by man, but there's some great things in the Bible. I'm not saying it's all bad at all. In fact, this is one of my favorite quotes. It is more difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to slip through the eye of the needle, which of course means it's really bad to have material things or any money, right? No, that's not what it means, right? It means when a rich man is very often attached to what? His things, the material world. And you can't get that into heaven, can you? No. And a camel cannot detach from its humps. And so very often a rich man, or in these days a rich woman, believes they cannot let go of their stuff because the stuff that they have is a measure of their worth in the world. And it isn't, unless it is in your mind. And for some people, other people, it is, right? They look at this rich man and they go, oh my God, if only I had those things, I'd be so happy. No, you wouldn't. Stephen, I'm telling you, I know you won't, and I'm telling you, no, you won't. How do you know? Because I've had it, right? And I know what it means. And I know how it can tear you down and exhaust you. Well, explain that to me. Okay, I will. I talk to myself quite a lot, don't I? Yeah, so do you. See, you just asked yourself, do I talk to myself? You just did it. We all do. Now, I just might do it more than most. I don't know. I don't know there's a measure of that. But anyway, so it's the attachment that's the problem. And so in my relationship with Tamaz, who you all know now, right? Because you've read the book, right? I was attached to her in a big way, right? I just thought she was amazing. I thought she was very sexy. And I just wanted her all the time. And I never wanted to lose her. So one of the things that one of the patterns that I created when I was a child is the fear of being abandoned. I was always making sure that I was on time. I was always afraid if anybody was going to be late. I was always afraid when I'd go to meet someone or they were going to come over to meet me, they were not going to show up because I was so afraid of being abandoned. Because why? Because I felt when I was a child that I was abandoned. I felt like my parents didn't love me. I felt like my friends didn't like me and they always were going to abandon me. And so I carried that pattern throughout my whole life and into this relationship with Tomas. See, if you don't heal these things, that's why I talk about, prevention before the cure, then you're going to carry them into relationships and it's going to destroy the relationship because then when you're afraid to be abandoned, you're going to become needy. Yeah, not you, but I mean some people, right? Anyway, so what happens then, you tend to give up yourself. I did with Tomas, right? I gave up all the things that were really important to me to be with her. Now, when you have these issues, as I certainly did, you're going to draw some into your life that's going to magnify them because they're going to do it to you, right? No. What's happening? They're doing it for you to see yourself, for you to heal your wounds and recognize parts of yourself that you haven't taken ownership of yet. They're a mirror. Not doing it to you, doing it for you. Now, they are very good actors, aren't they? They can make you believe. Make believe? We live in a world of make believe. We believe things, so we make them happen. It's a world of make believe. We're making it all up. Make you believe so. You create the environment and reality that you need to see yourself. It's all a mirror, right? So I was attached to Tomas as well as other things that I explain in the book too. Just got to read it. Anyway, so I lost myself. I stopped doing the things that were important to me, that made me who I am, that gave me self-worth, self-value, things like working out, things like juicing and having healthy juices, eating healthily, meditating, journaling, all these things, having a very close relationship with God. What do you mean close? Well, God is all around you in everything you see and everything you don't. You just got to look. You got to realize, see with your real eyes. These are not your real eyes. Those eyes will fool you. But you realize the way you really perceive the world are through your feelings. You see, you could look at someone and they look perfectly normal. I've never heard a fly. But for some reason, there's a feeling that you have that's telling you this person is not a good person. Now, which one do you usually go with? Yeah. These eyes, which will fool you. But you realize your feelings won't. But we don't listen to our feelings. We're told not to listen to our feelings, notice our feelings, do anything with our feelings, but ignore them. And your feelings are your intuition, right? They're sending you a message that if you listen to that feeling, you're probably going to change direction, right? But unfortunately, our mind overwhelms that intuition, doesn't it? And tells us what we want to hear, not what we need to hear. And sometimes following your intuition is uncomfortable. And we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to be comfortable. We want what we want, and we know what we want, and we want to have it when? In a few years. No, we want to have it now. That's the human condition, isn't it, right? And that's been conditioned in us, how? From external reality, from the material world. This is so amazing. Look at this. You want to have it when? I want to have it now. It's my stuff and I want it now. My money and I want it now, right? Quite right. Just like the commercial. So we've got to make sure we don't get attached to people, to things, the material world, because as I've already talked about many times, and probably will again, it's impermanent. It's not real. It's all imagined. We live in an imaginary world. Imagination, right? We're creating it. It's like we're watching a movie, our own movie, but we think it's somebody else's movie, or we're living in somebody else's movie because we'd rather do that than create our own. So I lost myself, right, in her. Now, it's not her fault. I gave it away. She didn't hold a gun to my head. She probably would have done if she could have, but she didn't need to. She knew that she was incredibly beautiful, and she knew that men would bow at her feet. And I happened to be the one closest by. Now, I did all those things, no question. I forgot who I was in order to have what I want. That's a big danger, right? Now I know you'd never do that, but there are some people out there. Anyway, she became my addiction. There's many kinds of addiction, right? I was very lucky in my life that I never got addicted to drugs. I didn't do every drug there is, but I mean, I did a bunch, right? I did LSD, I did cocaine, did marijuana, did amphetamines. I never did heroin because I was scared, right? Because I had friends that had and who were no longer with us, right? And almost all the drugs, I'd had friends that had lost their lives. So I was very lucky. And I don't say that lightly, but I say it's because it's the truth. My body chemistry, my biochemistry was such that I just didn't get addicted. Not because I had some superpowers. I was seriously just lucky. And in fact, what would happen is if I started to drink, I would get sick. If I started to take drugs for a period of time, I would get sick. I would just even the thought of the drug would make me physically feel sick. Now, I don't know there's many people can claim that, but I was one of them. Now, sex, alcohol, drugs, not a big deal. Sex, definitely. I was definitely addicted to sex with Tomas. It was freaking amazing, right? For various reasons that we may get into later. So Tomas really was the first time I'd taken heroin, right? She was my heroin, right? I was like, I had I can't even believe I ever got off that addiction, right? So I was prepared to give up everything to be with her. All the boundaries that I had in other relationships or in my life were just gone out of the window. And so what she was showing me is that she was very sexy. What she was showing me was a reflection of myself, that I was prepared to give up myself to be with someone who I was attached to, right? That was I called him my magnificent obsession. But that is great for a time, but it will destroy you. And it started to destroy me. It started to take away all my energy. I became exhausted trying to keep her, right? And she would constantly push the boundaries further and further, knowing that I was never going to set the final boundary, even though I tried. Right? So, and she would push me into doing things that I really didn't want to do. But eventually she knew she could get me to do it. Now, here's a funny story, right? So, in the book, actually, it happened in real life. I just put it in the book, right? So, she always wanted me to sleep with other women and her, right? And I just didn't want to do it. I know that sounds crazy. Most of the guys out there are going, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Right? Are you kidding me? She wanted you to sleep with other women. I mean, what were they look like? They were gorgeous, right? They were models like her, right? I mean, they were absolutely drop dead gorgeous. So why didn't you want to sleep with them? Well, because a lot of reasons, right? I just didn't want to have. First of all, she was about as much as I could handle, right? I mean, I can't imagine trying to pleasure two women like that, right? Um, Part of it, of course, is insecurity, right? That maybe she likes the woman more than me, right? And that's just one, right? So anyway, so boundaries were hard to set, but I told her I didn't want to sleep with her and other women, right? And maybe part of that was because I just wanted to appear to be a good guy. I don't know. All these things com- combined created the idea I just didn't want to sleep with another women. I didn't want to do a threesome. Now I had done it, right, when I was young, and it was with someone that I really loved, and I thought I was gonna. At one point, I was gonna marry. Anyway, something happened in the relationship, and she broke up with me. And then she came back and wanted us back together. And I was, I guess, a little resentful, right? That you could break up with me. That had never happened to me before. First time for everything, right? So she was also a teacher for me, right? That don't be so egocentric and believe that you're that amazing, right? Anyway, so that humbled me. But also, I got her to have a threesome with a friend of mine, right? Who'd come over from America. I was still living in England. And it just changed everything for me. And it destroyed that relationship for me. And so I didn't want to have that happen again, right? I didn't want to do that again. That was part of it. Anyway, Tomas was very pro the idea. And at one point, we had she started to live with me at the house, right? The mansion and the sex room, the whole thing. And she got kicked out. for reasons I'm not going to go into right now. The community said she can't live here anymore, and if she's ever seen in here again, she'll be arrested, right? Okay, so that's pretty clear. She can't live here anymore. So I was putting her up in hotels. And then I was going away to my speaking engagements at the weekend, usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then come back on a Monday. And so when I was away, she would go out, usually sleep around, have a binge weekend, and then I'd usually end up picking her up, and that was the end of it. So I had to make, I didn't have to, and that was a boundary I'd never broken in any other relationship in my life. But again, it was another example of how I was prepared to tolerate things that I would never do normally so I didn't lose her. Now, hi, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're here to make a public service announcement. If you're enjoying this conversation, which I know you are, right? Because if you say no, you probably lie about other things too, right? So if you're enjoying this, which I really do hope that you are, please take a moment to follow or hit the subscribe button and the like button so you never miss an episode. Let's get back to the conversation. At one point, she'd come back, and she would always be sorrowful. I don't, I just, and then it would become my fault. Usually she'd be sorry, and then within 2 minutes, it was my fault. So I'm really sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then she'd say, but the thing is, you leave me all alone here in this hotel, and you're gone all weekend, and I got nothing to do and nowhere to go or whatever, and all these crazy things. And I go, okay, fair enough. So I'd say, and she'd say, well, you don't take me out anymore, which I did. But, once she says something, it's like, are you going to argue or are you going to placate and see if you can fix it in her mind, right? So you never take me out. Okay, right. So when I come back after next year, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take you for dinner. We're going to have a great evening. Okay. So I pick her up in the car, right? The Rolls Royce, right? Treat her like a princess because she was a princess, right? So I pick her up in the Rolls and we go to the Ritz-Carlton for dinner. It's our favorite little haunt, right? So we go there and we're having drinks on the veranda at the back of the Ritz-Carlton, and it's a beautiful evening, right? Sun is going down. It's beautiful. She says, I'm just going to go powder my nose. I said, okay. So anyway, she comes out of the bathroom, the ladies' room, the powder room, with with a young woman, right? She's probably in mid-20s, maybe 30 tops. And they're laughing and giggling, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I know where this is going to be going, right? So this girl comes out and Tomas is introduced and said, this is Tracy. I said, oh, hello, Tracy. Hello, Steve. So they sit down, and then Tomas is saying like, Tracy was here with a friend of hers at the bar, and she was and Tracy says, yeah, I was here with a co-worker, and she's a bit older than me, so we really didn't have anything in common. We were actually about to leave. She'd already left, and I was just going to the ladies' room on the way out. And then I met Tomas, and she's amazing. I feel like I've known her for years, blah, blah, blah. Because Tomas had this ability. She could hypnotize people. I'm not joking. She could literally hypnotize people. She does things in the book that are just unbelievable. How she's able to manipulate men and women in seconds. I just never seen anything like it before. So anyway, these two now are besties after 5 minutes, right? And then Tomas starts saying, oh no. So then she says, well, this Tracy says, yeah, I just got into town. I was in a bad relationship. I don't think she said toxic. She was in a bad relationship. It was kind of abusive. And she said, I'm here to start over a new life. So she's in a weakened state, which is just like looking a gift horse in the mouth to Tomas, right? And I looked over at her and went, be nice to this girl, right? She's going through a bad time. And she's just like, ignores me. Right? So then she says, so Tomas says, Stephen, look at her. Doesn't she have nice teeth? I think he started that way. I don't know, right? And she got beautiful hair. And what am I going to say? No, right? So I go, yeah, it's nice. So then she goes, and then she says, look at her breasts. And then she says Tomas says to Tracy, are those real? And Tracy's like, oh yeah, they're real, yeah. So I'm trying to make light of the whole situation, right? And I'm going, oh, well, that's good because I like real. Actually, I prefer fake, to be honest. Trying to be funny didn't go down well, and I was nervous, so my humor was not good. Anyway, so Tomas looks at me and rolls her eyes, right? So then Tamaz says to me, look at her legs, Steve. And she's got beautiful legs. Now Tracy's lifting up her skirt and showing me her legs, right? I'm like, holy crap, right? So I'm from England. But yes, I know I wrote a book about sex, lies, and repercussions. Yes, I write very graphically about the sexual escapades I had with Tamaz. I did, right? However, I'm from England and we just don't talk about that stuff in England, right? What we do is we pretend it doesn't happen. I mean, I'd never ever told anybody I had a sex room in my house, right? Let alone any of my sexual escapades. I was still embarrassed about that stuff. And you go, well, why'd you put in the book then? Well, because I was trying to get over being ashamed of it, right? And keeping it all suppressed. Anyway, stop sidetracking me. I'm trying to focus on the story. So at one point, Tamaz says, we need to go powder our nose. Right? So she takes Tracy to the bathroom. And I know what the conversation's going to be, right? Anyway, about 20 minutes later, they come out giggling like little schoolgirls, right? And they come back, and Tamaz says, I have a proposal. We think that we should go somewhere private so we can have our privacy and have a, I don't remember exactly what she said, something like we can have a private conversation. And I know where that's going, right? So I get up and walk away. And as I walk past Jamaz, I said, can I have a word? So we walk back into the hotel. And I kind of found my way to the alcove outside the men and ladies bathroom. Right? And I'm kind of around the corner. And so Tamaz comes around the corner. What is wrong? What are you doing? Right? You're going to fuck this up. And I said, look, Tamaz, you know I'm not into that, right? I'm just not into it. And so then Tamaz puts her hand on her head like she's talking to a child, right? Look, what is wrong with you? You know, she hasn't slept with a guy in like 6 months. She's so ready to pop. She'll give you such a good time. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, here's the thing, Tamaz. I mean, we can't just get it. She says, go get a room. I said, look, Tamaz, it's the Ritz-Carlton. We can't all just go to reception to book a room with no bags. And then Tamaz again looks at me like, rolls her eyes and goes, we're not all going to go to the reception. You're going to go to the reception and then we're going to come up. And I go, okay, that didn't work. And I go, have you any idea how much a room is here at the Ritz-Carlton? And she looks at me like, you don't give a damn how much the freaking room is if it was what you wanted to do. And I said, look, I just don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave. And she says, I'm staying. I said, fine. So then I'm going out the entrance, right? They bring the rolls around. I'm getting in the rolls. Actually, I'm in the rolls. I'm about to drive away. And she comes running out of the Ritz-Carlton. As I'm starting to just start to drive away, she jumps in the passenger seat. As I'm sure you know, a Rolls Royce has suicide doors. They go the opposite way of a regular door. She somehow gets in the passenger seat, closes the door. I mean, I'm like, what? Who is this girl? She's a freaking stunt woman, right? So we drive away. It looked like a scene out of the movie Casino, right? Where Ginger's completely wasted and she's just doing crazy stuff, right? And he's trying to control the situation. Anyway, we're driving down the road and I'm taking her back to the hotel at this point, right? I'm like done for the evening. And so she's just giving me a hard time and shouting and I don't know if she was punching me in the arm or whatever. Anyway, she was giving me a hard time. And a couple of weeks earlier, she'd been so bad. We'd been to Vegas and she'd acted out in really bad situations. She got thrown out of a hotel, right? Which wasn't uncommon, right? She's wild, right? But I like that. She used to say to me, look, you know, she said to me, look, you knew what you were getting into when you met me, right? I'm never going to be normal. And you don't want me to be normal. I'm crazy and you like crazy. And I just thought to myself, she's freaking right. What am I going to say, right? So anyway, we were in Vegas and she'd acted out and I had done an event there. We were then, from after the event and after I spoke at this event, we were going to go to the Wynn Hotel and spend a few days there. But at the end of the weekend, I was so exhausted by it, I just went, screw that. I've got to set a boundary here. I've got to really see if I can draw a line in the sand. So I left her there, right? I left her in Vegas, right? The point is, I then said to her as we're driving down the road back to her hotel, I said, Tamaz, if you don't shut up, I'm going to drop you here and you can walk to the hotel, which is like 4 miles away, right? And she didn't want to have that to happen. And she now knew, because of what happened in Vegas, I would probably do that if she didn't shut up. All right. Anyway, so she just folded her arms, mad, right? Get back to the hotel. And when I get to the hotel, she gets out of the car, slams the door, knowing that'd piss me off, right? And then she walks into the hotel. I'll never forget. I was watching her go through the sliding doors, and in my head, I said, God, I love that woman, right? I know, insane. So I drive off, like screeching the tires, like I'm going somewhere. I had no idea where I was going to go. I just thought that would look good. Anyway, she probably had gone in already and didn't even see that. So then I say, well, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to go see my old girlfriend, right? She's an old girlfriend. There was nothing happening between us. I just wanted to spend some time with someone who didn't know about all this craziness going on in my life. So I drive, I don't know, it's like maybe 10 miles to where she was living, where she lived. And I stop the car outside a house, park the car kind of on the grass. I turn off the ignition, and then I'm looking for my, what do you call it? The foible, not the foible, the fob, the key fob, right? I'm looking for the key fob. It's not there. She took the fob before she got out of the car. Son of a. So now I have to go inside my ex's house, right? Because the car's outside. I can't leave it there and go back to the hotel and get the key fob. I got to go inside first, otherwise she's going to wonder where the hell I am, right? So I go in the house and I give her like a Reader's Digest of what's going on. So then my ex-girlfriend says, so you're telling me that she's got the fob to your car and you can't get in? I go, yeah. She goes, this girl sounds amazing. I want to meet her. And I'm thinking, yeah, she's probably going to do a threesome with you. Anyway, so I eventually have to go back to the hotel to get the key fob. So I go back to the hotel and I go up to the room, knock on the door. And of course, she keeps me waiting forever, right? So finally she comes to the door, unlocks the door, walks away, and she's on the phone, right? And she's talking to her mother, or at least pretending to be, I don't know. And then she's going to set everything up in case she decides she wants to call the police, because she's done that a million times, right? So as I come into the room, she's saying to her mother, I don't know what's wrong with him, mother. He just gets so angry. I don't know. I'm kind of scared. Oh, great. So then she puts the phone down, and I said, Tomas, listen, you got to give me the key fob. I got to get my car. She said, well, where is it? I said, and now she's interrogating me, right? This is not going to go well. So I go, well, I parked it at a friend's house. Which friend? Right? And then she goes, what's her name? And now I'm totally screwed, right? So forget the key fob. I'm not getting the key fob now, right? So I have to go back to my former girlfriend's house. She lets me in, and then we have, and she's drinking until I had to call the tow truck to tow the rolls back to the dealership so they could make another key fob, which is going to cost me $500, right? Anyway, we sat there talking, and it was kind of, we had just as a friend, right? And nothing happened, right? So then they take the car away on the truck, right? And I have to get an Uber home, right? And then I'm lying in bed, and I'm thinking, hold on a second. So I left the house earlier in a Rolls Royce. I go pick up my girlfriend to go and have a nice dinner at the Ritz-Carlton. She finds a beautiful girl that wants to sleep with me along with her. I decide I don't want to do that. We get back to the hotel. She steals my key fob to my Rolls. I go to my girlfriend's house, my former girlfriend's house, and then realize and come back to the hotel to get it. She won't give it to me. And now I'm at home. So in one night, I lost a Rolls Royce, a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful third girl that wants to fuck my brains out, my ex that I also didn't have any sex with. I didn't even have dinner. I'm about the only guy I know that could pull that off in one evening. So trying to set a boundary with her was not easy. There were incredible times that I spent with Tomas, otherwise I wouldn't have stayed, right? And there were times that were just hilarious, memories that will last a lifetime. So it wasn't all bad. In the end, there was no choice, and I had to let her go. And we'll talk about that another time. So in the end, she taught me so many things. She taught me where I had judgment. She opened my mind to all kinds of different things, not just sexually, but also about life and the way life is in America and the world in general. She was incredibly intelligent. We used to spend 3 days at a time in a sex room. You go, wait a minute. How are you able to go for 3 days? Because after being ridiculed as a kid for having a small dick, because the guys decided to pick on me in the showers, right? We then spread the whole school. I became an overachiever in the bedroom, right? And so I learned how to pleasure a woman in ways that most women never get pleasured. And that also allows me to spend days in there rather than 20 or 30 minutes on the upside. So we would go for hours and then we would take a break and we would play backgammon because we both love backgammon. And we would talk for hours about different things. And she would, you ever heard of deja vu, where you feel like you've been there before? Well, she made me realize there's something called déjà, right? Which is when someone gets you to see the world or something that you thought you knew about and you were so certain about in a completely different way. And Tamaz was good at doing that. She taught me so many things on so many levels. She was my heroine. I was addicted to her. So addictions can come in many different forms. So we're going to talk about addiction and how to get out of addiction, or how never get into an addiction, how to get out of a toxic relationship, how never to get into a toxic relationship, and how to get out of one if you're ever in one. And that is identifying patterns. And this pattern had been with me my whole life, but I just never realized it. And so the universe decides at some point in your life, it's going to show you so clearly, so powerfully, that you finally get it. And that's what usually comes out of, if you're ready to see it, toxic relationships. But you can't blame the other person. You can't believe it happened to you. You have to recognize it happened for you. Now, you're not always going to get that right away. There are still things that happened in my relationship with Tamaz that I'm realizing were a mirror of me even to this day. It happens all the time. But only because you're committed to finding it and looking for it in the first place. So a lot more to talk about the book and the lessons of the book. However, we're about at our limit of time right now. So yeah, I know there's a cliffhanger there, right? So what we're going to talk about as well is forgiveness, you know? So people say, man, how could you ever forgive her for some of the things she did? Because she didn't do them to me. She did them for me. And one of the keys to really living the life that you want and being able to find your creator, find love, is to forgive. Now, usually you forgive the people that you think have trespassed against you. Forgive those who we think have trespassed against us. However, in the end, once you've done that and you've got past all that stuff, that's getting past the clouds, there's one big cloud left. One last person you have to forgive. Who's that? Yeah, that's right. It's you, right? So I wrote a poem. You might call it a piece of soldiery, as I really got into the mindset, the feeling, the state where I could own my stuff, right? The things that I needed to forgive about myself. And I wrote this. It's called Truly Live. Let's see if you can relate to it in any way. So it's sultry time, right? What does that mean? It means we've got to get ready. So take a deep breath. Let it out through your heart. Make sure your feet are on the floor. Another deep breath. Let it out through your heart. Now with your feet on the floor, gently close your eyes. And I will begin. This is called Truly Live. Save me, I'm falling into the void. As I fall, I see the past that I try to avoid. I see I was guilty of all the things I once denied. Now I can let go of the story that I had contrived. The things I have done have left a bad taste. I have hurt people and made decisions in haste. I have run away from the fears that I faced, lived a life of confusion, excess, and waste. I have lied, made excuses, and felt sorry for myself. I have abused my body and my spiritual health. I have tried to accumulate much material wealth. I have manipulated life to feel better about myself. I have committed crimes fit for a king. I have been the lost soul for which angels sing. I have pushed love away with all my resistance. I have been a dark shadow lost in the distance. I created a prison inside and out. I created a living hell people talk about. I created a feeling of being lost and alone. I created a world that for me had no home. I created relationships that would never last. I created relationships that reflected my past. I created opportunities to heal all my pain. Then I would push them all away again. I used my mind to protect my heart. That stopped me from feeling and pulled me apart. I used other people without giving them back. I thought I had to defend, that I was under attack. All these things I've done and need to forgive. I know that only by forgiving myself can I truly live. Okay, deep breath. Out through your heart. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. And take that in. Take it into your heart. So we covered a lot of ground here today. In the next episode, we're going to talk about judgment. We're going to talk about how these things seeped into other relationships that I had in my life. Remember, I've been married 4 times, and that's without even taking into account all the girlfriends I'd had in my life, right? And we're going to talk about how I ran away, and I was always running away, and what that meant in my life and my relationships, and why was I running away? What was I running away from? Okay. And the need to forgive, which we've talked about a little bit here. We're going to go into a little bit more detail. All right, so take some time to really absorb what we talked about today. Maybe go through this again. And if you think this is of value to other people, please let them know and have them watch the podcast. The more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned, right? Don't forget that in the notes, there is an opportunity to get the first 3 chapters of the book. If for some amazing reason you haven't already bought the book, got the book, and read the book, what are you waiting for? All right. And then I give you the first 3 chapters because I know once you read 3 chapters, you're done. You're going to get the book. All right. And also join our community. You know, we're creating a community, so a space where people can, you know, talk about the things that maybe they've been ashamed of, be vulnerable, and be safe, right? You know, and not feel alone. You know, when you go through these experiences, sometimes people seem to stop understanding, stop caring, and say, don't call me until you get out of that relationship, or you change, you do different things. And sometimes your patterns can create patterns of behavior that cause you to feel insecure, defensive, and you push people away. So if you feel like you need some help with that, let me know. Get a complimentary 30-minute consultation with me, and let's see if we can't work together on healing some of those wounds and helping you create new patterns that take you in the direction you want to go. There's also a free guide of the 7 signs that you might be in a toxic relationship. Subscribe here. You know, let us know that you like this. I mean, I know you do, right? But just subscribe. It really helps us to build a bigger audience and reach more people. And I know you want us to do that. All right. So in the meantime, before our next podcast, always remember, nothing happens to you. Everything happens for you.
Let's go. Spiritual sparkle in a world of gray, finding the truth in the disarray. It's a raw confession of a life lived fast, breaking the chains of a heavy past, from the erotic spirit to the soul's rebirth, finding what a human life is real. waiting for the break of a breath.